Do you ever feel like you say, I'm sorry a lot? Do you find yourself apologizing all the time? And it's just like an automatic response. So, like you're in the store, you bump into someone, you equally bump into each other, but you say, oh, I'm sorry. Or there's an invitation from someone and you say, no, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And you offer an explanation. Today, we are going to look into that concept. Like, where did we learn that behavior? And why do we use it? Why do we do it? And we're going to look at how it can feel really disempowering. How does it feel in our bodies when we find ourselves saying, I'm sorry, but da 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 da. It's very disempowering place to come from. So today we're going to talk about a shift. We're going to explore a new perspective, a new approach to moments like this. And it all has to do with the power and choices we make around words we use. And I like to think about the fact that words are spelled, right? The letters create a word via being spelled. And I think that in a way, we cast spells over ourselves in the words we use and over others. So depending on the words we speak in our life is so powerful. So today we're going to talk about how do we take our power back? How do we speak in a way that honors ourselves and other parties and stop over apologizing and making it such a quick, easy habit to drop into? I'm Erica, and I am your host of Powered by Joy podcast, and I am here exploring ideas with you about getting more joy in our lives, feeling more alive. So if you're someone who's stuck, bored, frustrated, you find yourself really quick to anger, you got a short trigger, a hair trigger on your anger, anything like that, or you just feel like you're in Groundhog's Day and you can't make change in your life, and you're like, I just don't even know what to do next. So we're talking about that stuff here. How do we make small, subtle shifts in our life that are actually super powerful and effective? And maybe we can do it in a way that's more playful and fun and bring more space for joy, feeling more alive, having more adventures, making memories. We're trying to do all that without sacrificing our commitment and our love for our family and our friends. So if that sounds like something that you can relate to, then you're in the right place, my friends. Okay, so we're going to start with the definition. So I wrote it down because I'm not going to remember the technical definitions out of a dictionary. So one was feeling regret or sorrow. Another was in a poor or pitiful state. One was sad or self-pitying. Another was used to express disappointment or regret. And the Old English version was pained or distressed. And then I looked up the definition of apology, and that was interesting too. Apology is a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or failure, or a very poor or inadequate example. Those were the definitions. And then the Greek one was a speech in one's own defense, which I thought was interesting too. I love looking up definitions and the roots of what words mean. But over apologizing is what we're kind of talking about today. It's not when we have actually done something that has caused pain pain or discomfort, or something that's gone wrong and someone else has suffered for that choice we've made that has instigated this. There's always a place for apology in those situations, but we're really not talking about that today. So please don't take this as permission to not be apologizing and owning and taking responsibility for when you fuck up. Okay? That's not what we're doing here today. Today is kind of more about that quick habit of always being like, oh, I'm sorry, but, or just we say it all the time. It's an over apologizing that we're really looking at. So if you find yourself over apologizing, this should resonate with you. So it actually stems from a list of possibilities, and I started really diving into it and got sucked into researching too, just because I'm a curious person. But it talked about a long list, but I'm just going to pull out a few of the ones that I found common across multiple websites when I was digging into it. But common reasons we struggle with finding ourselves over apologizing are things like false guilt. So we feel guilty for somebody else's or some other situation that we're actually not even responsible for. We can find ourselves apologizing. So it's called false guilt. Another is out of habit. We had it modeled to us, and so we just copy that behavior. It's also cultural. There's some cultures where when you're having a conversation and they don't hear you, they say, "I'm sorry." And so it's just very different reasons. It can come from perfectionism. And another one that I thought was kind of big is social discomfort. So we are usually apologizing in those situations, saying, "I'm sorry," when we feel uncomfortable or we feel we've made someone else feel uncomfortable. And so in a social circumstance where all of us have a innate desire to fit into community and be accepted inside of our community. And so a way to make sure that someone is not unhappy with us, if we start to detect that maybe we've said something or done something or behaved in a way that they don't like, even if it's not something we've done wrong, but it just makes them feel uncomfortable by our mere presence or a word we chose or sharing a story, that is coming from a place of trying to fit in socially. And so it's social discomfort is one reason. And people pleasing was a huge one. And it's kind of the same thing where you're wanting another person's approval. And so if you have done something or behaved in a way or said the thing and you start to sense, "Oh, that didn't go down very well," or we just find ourselves saying, "I'm sorry." So we do it out of a need for approval from others so that we are accepted and feel like we're part of a safe community. And that brings me to another one where if you are in an environment, whether in your childhood or as an adult, and you're in an environment where you don't necessarily feel safe, this can feel like social discomfort too. But the side of that would be like safety. Like if you're someone who comes into an environment and you know that maybe one parent has a really bad temper, then the child might learn to apologize quickly as soon as they see something that might trigger that parent's temper. So it's a quick way to de-escalate the situation and make that child feel safer in their environment. It's their way of having some control over the environment. So they're quick to say, "I'm sorry," if they think, "Oh, that might piss that person off." So safety can play into it too. And so I thought that was super fascinating. A little dive into why we tend to apologize or over apologize, which is kind of what we're focusing on today. Over apologizing, not the other stuff. So, touching back on the people pleasing piece of it, do you know that when we are people pleasing, it actually comes from us having a desire and need to control another person's emotions or reaction? And that's not something we really have control over, but we attempt to do that via over apologizing. So I just thought, oh, that was an interesting thought that when we have a desire to control someone else's emotions, that is a tool that we use. So I just thought that was interesting. And I'm sure we're all guilty of doing it sometimes. So now that we know what the definition is, I wanted to share what I kind of came away with. And that was that I really noticed the words were so disempowering around the definitions of the word sorry and apology. They're just like, think about how your body feels when you think about the word sad, regret, pity, self-pity, disappointing. Like those are all very like kind of bring you a vibe down kind of feelings, right? And I thought, no, we don't want that for ourselves via over apologizing. We don't want to be calling that in on ourselves via the words we're using, right? So on top of that, I'm sorry, we usually offer a justification or explanation of why for saying no or what happened. So I'm sorry, but I can't make it to the party because blah, 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 right? So I'm going to give a personal example. Years ago, once upon a time, when I was co-parenting kids that were under the age of 18, like if we were dealing with a scheduling issue and I needed to say, no, that doesn't work. I would say, "No, that doesn't work. I'm sorry, but I have to get to work at 6 p.m. tonight, so that's not going to work for me." That "no, I'm sorry," and justification always opened the door to a further conversation where he could, and I would have further conversation that maybe wasn't as smooth and easy. There might be more dialogue or I'm having to explain further. That opens the door for space for an argument possibly. And I noticed that and was like, oh, I always have this need to justify or explain myself when I'm like, oh, I have to work. Like I could just say, no, that time doesn't work. Is there another time that works for you? Instead, I would go off and explain it, which just opened the door to a conversation that didn't go towards solution at all. So I wanted to share that personal example because I think we all can relate to like feeling that need to explain and justify ourselves. And there was at one point I met a lady who said that, if she finds herself being late and she's communicated, hey, I'm going to be late. But when she arrives, instead of saying, I'm so sorry I was late because there was a car accident on the freeway, she would say, oh, thank you so much for waiting for me. I really appreciate it. I'm like, what? Wow, that's crazy. Those words feel very different than the feelings our body get when we say, I'm sorry, and we're justifying ourselves because maybe we don't feel worthy of them waiting for us because traffic happened or whatever. So it comes from a disempowering place and doesn't honor ourselves. And so we want to seek a different solution, right? So I always do better with examples, and that's why I wanted to share that one. And then I wanted to talk about something that if you've heard any prior episodes, this is going to sound familiar. So one, I started observing. So these are my steps. I like to bring in steps just to kind of like make a rhythm when you're starting to try to have different behavior, make shifts and changes in your choices and thoughts and behavior so that you can make space for the good stuff. It means getting other habits in place. So first is observe. We've heard this before if you've been here. We're observing that we are apologizing, over apologizing. I'm sorry. Oh, I would da-da-da-da-da. Okay. We've observed it. And two, you guys might be able to guess this if you've been listening, is curiosity. We're getting into curiosity and saying, okay, I observed I did it. How can I respond different? Oftentimes our communication is via text these days. So you have time and you can think about it. So how can I word my response in this situation so that I honor myself and the other party without apologizing, because there's actually not a need for an apology in this situation. So I'll get into examples, but I just wanted to go through our steps. So 1, observe. 2, curiosity. 3, we're going to respond instead of react. So this is where we pause. So we've observed, we've gotten curious. So we've taken that pause to respond instead of react. And that reacting is where that I'm sorry comes from, because we don't think about it first, right? So I'm asking you to pause and respond from that curiosity. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going to word this different. I'm going to shift my words. Where are my powerful words? Where are my positive, higher vibe words than the low vibe of the sorry and the apologizing and the justification? So we're responding. So like, take that pause. Don't text right back. Give yourself 1 whole minute to respond, think, go, how in the world can I respond to this without an apology that's not necessary in this moment and honors us both? And then 4, I love this word, celebrate. Now, this can be in your mind. It doesn't have to take very long. Or maybe you're in your car by yourself and you just paused, came back with a different response in your text message. You could say it out loud in your car. You could be like, good job, self. Sounds so silly, but every time we celebrate and acknowledge doing something better and right, and we give a little reward, our brain fires off and goes, oh, we did something right. So it's good job, self, or I rock, woohoo, and I pat myself on the back like, yes. Or maybe I pump my fist in the air and I'm like, yes, I'm awesome. Okay. You might visualize yourself doing that. If you're around a bunch of people and you can't do it, you can do that in your mind, because your mind starts wiring and going, oh, my mind, my body liked that when I responded differently. And so then when it comes up in another scenario where you have that option, your brain's like, oh, wait, remember, we got a reward last time we did it this way. And you'll start to naturally start remembering to make that different choice and responding with a more powerful set of words and casting that better spell on yourselves and others. So don't forget to celebrate. It's so simple. It doesn't have to be a long thing, but let's just celebrate. Acknowledge, get in the habit of acknowledging when you do something and make a better choice for yourself. Make a better choice for the relationships you have. Make a better choice for your future you that gets you more joy and less self-criticism and judgment and putting words back on yourself that do not lift you up and help you feel happier in your day. Okay. So like I said, I like examples. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Okay. Here's example number 1. So you have a friend that calls and they invite you to a concert that they really want you to go to, and you actually really want to go to it too. So the bad version of the response or reaction is, I'm sorry, I can't. I have to go to my sister's that day. That's the bad. Like we're going like, okay. Good response is, thank you so much for thinking of me. I would love to go, and I want you to think of me first next time. I can't make it this time. But you call me first next time, okay? That would be a much better example because you've honored yourself. You've actually thanked them for thinking of you and encouraged them to think of you next time. Another one would be, let's say you have smaller kids at home still, or a grandchild, whatever it is. But let's say your son is wanting that third book to be read. He's like, you've already read 2 stories. He's like, Mom, can you please read me the 3rd story? And you're like, it's getting late. So the bad response would be, I'm sorry, it's getting late. I've already read you a couple books. We're not reading anymore tonight. Okay. That right there, you said, I'm sorry. And you've kind of that does not feel good. Okay. Neither of you are like, oh, yay, now I'm all excited to go to bed. Okay. No, but the good response would be, I love that you love reading stories with me. This is such a special time of night. How about we make this the first book we read tomorrow, since you really like this book? And ta-da, we're moving on. We're not apologizing. And remember, especially with kids, they model and copy our behavior, not what we say, but what we do. And why not start modeling this instead of over apologizing and justifying? And like, it's really subtle, but when we start modeling this different behavior, it trickles down in the generations. It causes healing going down in the generations. It makes them better parents, better people, better business people, better out in the community. It is a ripple effect when we make the small choice with our words to respond and not react in love, kindness, and compassion. And so there's so much power there. And one of the other things that I want to really hone in on is that I feel that I've observed, and I've had a lot of conversations around this, and that is how, let's say, this is a really common example. Okay, you go out with your friends and you've decided you're going to not drink for a month because you're training for a sports competition, and you just really want to feel absolutely the best possible in your body. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with them tonight, but I'm not going to drink. So you go out with them and they get there and they're like, hey, are you going to have a drink? And you're like, no, I'm not going to have a drink. So this is a situation where I'm talking about an example where, as the person who's been told no, so let's say the other person says no, they don't say, I'm sorry, I'm not drinking because I'm training for blah, 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 or whatever. If they just say, no, not tonight, they should be able to say that. I thought about this, and I'm speaking not from being perfect in this area, and I think we're all guilty of this, but when you are with another person and they are trying to say no in a situation to something that you're wanting them to say yes, or they are honoring a desire they have for themselves, or they are honoring a boundary they've set for themselves, such as eating differently, not consuming alcohol. Maybe they're leaving. They said, yeah, I'm going to come out, but I got to be home in bed by 9. So they're setting a bedtime so that they honor their sleep schedule. Okay. These are boundaries that a person sets with themselves. So then when they're out with other people, they have to hold that boundary. So when we're on the end of people saying no or setting a boundary or saying, thank you for inviting me. But they say that we should not be asking for a justification or explanation either. We can honor their boundaries and not be like, well, why aren't you drinking? Why won't you drink with us? Come on, just have one drink, or come on, stay out a little later. It doesn't matter. It's only 9. You can get to bed at 10. Like, why can't we show up? I'm saying this to myself as we speak. So just so you know, but having a conversation with a friend of mine who even was sharing how like people didn't understand that she didn't have the same desire to travel that they did, like feeling this desire to explain or justify yourself. Like, why can't we be like, oh, cool, you know? And if that person feels like sharing why they're not doing the thing or why they've set a boundary or a rule or said no, let them. But we shouldn't be like making them justify and explain themselves or make them feel like they need to apologize for saying no or no thank you or not right now. Let them have that boundary. So I don't know. I just really wanted to touch on that other side of it because I think it doesn't feel good when we are trying to kind of hold that line with ourselves and honor ourselves too, and not play this over apologizing game so that we can be people pleasing and accepted into the community. Like, can we give each other space and acceptance and love and kindness and compassion, all these fruity words, but can it look tangible in your daily life? That you go out to dinner and your friend's like, oh, I'm not having dessert tonight. And you're like, that's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna get something still. Do you have enough time if I get a dessert? They now feel like you value that they're doing that. Like, there's power in acknowledging their desire and their wish and boundary for themselves and not making them justify themselves or apologize. So I don't know, it's a two-way street, right? I just thought I wanted to talk about the other side of it, not just stopping and apologizing, but like, let's not be the people making someone feel like they need to apologize and offer an explanation or justification of their choices that they make. Let's just, see what we can do. So the playful side of this is I like to think of it like a puzzle. And if we tell our brain and set an intention that we're going to observe and catch ourselves when we are feeling the need to apologize or when we're on the receiving end and we receive someone saying no, let's play a game of like, oh, how can I respond differently? How can I show up in a way that honors us both? How can I do that? And I think if we tell our brains that it's a game, it's fun, we're setting an intention to be that way and use different words and show up differently, it seems so subtle, but is such a powerful way to make a shift in your life. It doesn't cost anything to change the way you speak and respond to people and the words you choose, shifting those. It's actually all just the cost of energy mentally and setting that intention and observing ourselves in those moments and going, ooh, okay, here's my chance. I'm going to be curious and like, how can I solve this puzzle and say it better, differently? How can I show up to honor both parties in this conversation? So make it playful, make it fun. It can be a game all in your own head. You can even share with people that this is something you're working on. Like when we're transparent, it just helps. Like we don't have to go this alone. You can be transparent and say to your spouse, look, I'm really going to work on this, or you can even say it with your teen kids, like whoever it is. We can actually be the brave ones to like instigate conversations, being like, I catch myself apologizing all the time. I'm really going to work on that. I'm setting this intention, or, when you say no, or you don't want to eat dairy this week, I'm going to not push you on it and offer you ice cream and a shake at the end of the week. I'm going to honor what you said. So make it a game, make it a puzzle, make it not miserable. It doesn't all have to be misery. Let's just use this free option of choosing to pause and choose our words and maybe stop over apologizing that I'm sorry. We can just drop it off and let it go, right? Let's get our power back with our words and change our lives, bring in more joy, more play, more fun. That comes when we let go of that other stuff. Those other words that were like regret, sadness, disappointing, like yuck, we're just dropping that. Drop it, get rid of it, okay? And let's choose our words more thoughtfully and make our shift in our life just through our words, okay? So I hope you found this super helpful. And especially if you're someone who finds yourself over apologizing all over the place, you're apologizing all over yourself, then this is for you. But if you also know somebody who has that habit, which I think we all know a lot of people that have that habit, please share this episode with them. And if you are not already subscribed, following, and make sure you hit the like button, all those things. I would love it if you would help with that, because it is growing my channel that I'm so excited to be growing as we sit here and seek ways to bring in more joy, more happiness, feeling more alive. Like that's what we're doing here. So last week I talked about some new offerings I'm super excited about. And so if you're somebody who is like coming into that empty nest phase, or your kids are busy, or you're that burned out mom or parent, or you're the person that struggles with these disempowering words and word habits, I'm offering a free discovery call that's 30 minutes, and you can go into the show notes or the notes on YouTube. You can go down below and get the information on how to schedule that first call for free. And I am doing that for a limited time. And then another thing I'm super excited about that's local to the Boise area is play dates for mamas. And that is something that we're doing for moms who need to get out, and maybe you don't have kids in home, but you like have all this time on your hands and you're like, I don't know what I want to go do for fun. We're going to go out and find some adventures and practice being playful and having the joy. Because if you don't go out and try new stuff, how do you know how to play, and how do you bring in more joy in your life? And it's through connecting with other people and putting yourself out there. So I invite you to check out that, and all of the information is in the show notes. And I am so thankful that you came and joined me, and I am excited. I'm so excited about helping other people go along this journey with me of seeking more joy in our lives and making big changes in our lives through fun. Doesn't all have to be serious and misery. So come along if that's what you're looking for. Okay. Well, thanks for joining this week. I'll see you next week.